is rough, and it takes all that you've got, but he's been here, just waiting for you to knock, so take his hand and plant your feet on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock.
Welcome to Life on the Rock, everybody. My name is Doug Barry, and I am the Rockhouse compadre, along with Father Mark's not here. So we have Father Anthony with us tonight, filling in. Father Mark is away on covert assignment, and Father Mark, you have our prayers. Welcome to the show. We have a great show tonight. We have Father Brian Nolan and Doug Jackson from the Back from the Dead Cemetery Walk. It's a theatrical production. You're going to love this show, and we've got some acting going on here tonight. It's going to be fantastic. First segment here, we have Colin Donovan with us as well. He is the top dog, head of theology here at the network. Is that the best way to put it?
That's accurate enough.
Top dog. There you go. All right. Before we get into the situation here and the question with Colin, though, I did want to explain why I'm wearing camouflage. From now on, this is my habit. This is my standard operating military clothing as church militant here, since you priests get the brown habit. We're going to see. I might see if I can swing this. Got to see if my wife approves this or not. But anyway, particularly for this show, because we're going to be dealing with the election, talking a little bit about that and what's coming up. And we are at war. I mean, it is a war. Now we're fighting principalities of darkness. There's no question. We do not fight the flesh. We are fighting the principalities and powers of darkness. But that manifests itself in a lot of physical expression, as we're seeing with the divorce rate, with the abortion, with the addiction, with the attack on marriage. I mean, we are seeing this all around us. And we must recognize that it is a battle. And it is a battle we cannot get complacent in. We cannot get comfortable in. And with the election coming up very soon, very critical time for us to really step up in this fight. Now, along these lines, I've started something now through radixguys.com and campgargano.com called Battle Ready. Now, Battle Ready is very simply this. It's an effort, it's an expression of the Camp Gargano mission to try to ignite the fire and the warrior spirit of primarily Catholic men, but anybody and everybody. And what it is you go to our website, you go to radixguys.com or campgargano.com, you click on the Battle Ready, sign up, give me your email address, and you're going to get a regular email, maybe a daily email, a weekly video. It's going to be a variety of things that are going to be challenging, encouraging, short, to the point, to try to ignite and wake us up and remind us that body, mind, and soul, we have a job to do. And we can't get complacent, again, when it comes to this job. So Battle Ready, check it out. We got a great 30-second trailer on there as well, pretty exciting. And this is going to, I think, reach a lot of guys out there who have a hard time understanding how our spirituality as Catholic men, as Christian men in general, how it fits into today's world. How are we a fighter, protector, defender? Okay, how do we do this as Christian men? You know, check out Battle Ready. Again, go to campgargano.com or radixguys.com, and you'll find it right there. Click on it, join now, and let's get it going. Right now, there's over 130 signed up just in the first week, and everybody who's in the ranks of Battle Ready, male or female, because we have women signed up too, because I know they're passing these emails on to the men in their lives, which is sometimes the only way to get to the men is through the ladies, right? Need I say Adam and Eve? And so we want to encourage you ladies to sign up as well, and then you can pass it on to the guys in your life, fathers, sons. This is for priests, seminarians. It's for any man out there primarily. Okay, but again, sign up for that right now, and you'll get a mass offered for everybody in the ranks of Battle Ready once a month. And the only other thing we ask is that we encourage everybody to pray for the others in the ranks of Battle Ready, because we're all in this fight together, and we got to work together. That being said, Colin, great to have you on the show.
Good to be here, Doug.
And very critical time. We're just under 2 weeks out from a very, very important election. Not that every election isn't important, but this one has a particular weight to it right now. Yeah, and in the amount of time we have you on the show, I know we want to address this non-negotiable scenario and the conscience of the individual voter when it comes to candidates that might not fit the bill according to what we think they should fit. Can you take that for us?
Yeah, sadly, your analogy of a battle and the militancy is not poetic or metaphor at all. We are in a battle. We're in a battle for human life, for family and marriage, and for religious liberty. And all of these are these great non-negotiables. And there's others as well that people have enunciated. And basically that simply means things that are so essential, for which there is a black and white moral theology that says this is good, this is evil. And therefore we can never choose the evil but must choose the good. And we need to make that as part of our prudential judgment. There are many things that we can do in life, the way that we help the poor, this method or that method, whether by vouchers or government action or private action. These are things subject to negotiation and prudential judgment as to what will actually work in the world. Those have to be secondary to these essential things upon which the life of a society depends. And so it really is this battle today in which we have to militantly take our whatever device is used in your community, your voting machine or your voting ballot and number 2 pencil, whatever it is, and use that to choose individuals who will guarantee, as much as you can humanly guarantee and foresee, that these non-negotiable things, these essential things of society's life and family life and our individual lives, the sacredness of human life, the dignity of marriage in the family versus radical unions that are proposed as equal to that, as well as our liberty issues, such as the religious liberty issue that the church faces today. I think a lot of people sometimes, by homing in on abortion, as important as that is an issue, forget that we could be on the verge of losing our Catholic institutions that are not under that worship umbrella. In other words, that aren't exactly a church, but they're Catholic and they're motivated by Catholic values, but they serve non-Catholics as well, or they employ non-Catholics as well, or they teach or preach to non-Catholics as well, like EWTN does. These institutions could go away under very oppressive fines as the present policies are going to do if they continue. So I think people need to look at these non-negotiables and realize we can negotiate on these prudential issues, how Social Security, how the poor will be served, how a living wage will be provided for families. These things can be negotiated. We can't negotiate human life away. We can't negotiate marriage and family away, and we can't negotiate religious liberty away. These are essential to us as a nation and to a world and a species, and this is what we have to protect above all.
And you would think that, you know, for the Christian out there in general who values their faith, if someone came to me, for example, and said, I know you're a husband and father, but we're going to outlaw your family. You know, we're going to make it impossible for you to go public with your family. You can't be seen publicly with your family. You can't be seen, you know, it's a public, you know, expression. That's kind of, in a roundabout way, the attack on our Christian freedoms, on our religious freedoms. There'd be no question. I wouldn't even consider voting for these people. Right. I mean, we got to get them out of there. Yeah. To me, it baffles me that when you've got any politician out there who in any way, shape, or form wants to in any way crush our religious freedoms, even slightly, that should be the first red flag. Because if our institutions go, then the pro-life battle is hurt dramatically. The traditional marriage is hurt. Everything out there, if you go right to the heart and cut the foundation out, and we're in trouble across the board.
I mean, even on the economic level, if Catholic social service institutions go away, who's going to pick that up?
Right.
The state's going to pick it up. Who's going to pay for it? The taxpayer is going to pay for it. You cannot raise enough money by taxes without destroying the economy to pay for all the things that the Catholic Church or the Jewish synagogue in Jewish hospitals, or the Lutherans in the social services, or the Muslims in what they do to help as well in social services. You can't replace religious institutions in one fell swoop like that. The state will have to pick up the burden, and that is going to be a crushing new debt on top of the debt we already possess.
Right. Okay, so what do you say to someone who's really debating, okay, this particular politician, you don't have that real great distinction.
Right.
You know, you've got, I mean, when in presidential race, there's certain clarity I think we should probably recognize, you know, but on Senate and House, some of these other races, other areas, what do we do when both candidates might be leaning, a little problem with both of them? How do we address that?
I think this is a problem that most people have, because naturally they want to vote for somebody who agrees with what the church teaches. But we have to remember something, of course, that the moral theology tradition of the church accepts, and that is that in prudential matters, the different elements go into it, like a foresight of the consequences of what our actions will be. We can't simply vote in a vacuum. We have to ask ourselves the question, what will be the consequence of this vote in this time? It's fine to say, yeah, but this person won't do away with abortion, or this person won't do away with gay unions where they already exist, or whatever it is. But then you also have to ask, what would be the consequence of somebody else who will do even more radical things? And so you have to be prudent, which means making judgment about the consequences of my actions. And insofar as you can see, realizing we are not God, we can't see the future, we make the best judgment that we can now on the information available, believing that among these two or perhaps three paths in some elections, one of them is going to produce the best outcome in terms of an actual situation in the country and in society. We always have the future to deal with, which means we always will want to turn back the clock on abortion and other things, and those are things we have to work for, but we have to do what is prudentially possible now to serve the people in our time living now in this moment, and the good of society in this moment.
Right. Wow. Powerful stuff right now. Father?
I would throw one word in there that pastorally, many of our people get so frustrated with this type of thing, and then they become indifferent, or they say, well, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go and vote. And I would remind everyone, as Catholics, we have an obligation to be participating in our it's a civil duty and a moral duty that we have to cast that ballot and contribute to the function of our society.
And as we noted on the Theology Roundtable, which has aired a few times already, will air again a week from Saturday, November 3rd at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, be another re-air of that. And that is, the moral theology tradition tells us that we can't be indifferent, especially where there are intrinsic evils involved. We can have a moral obligation to vote to end insofar as we can see that intrinsic evil or the possibility of an intrinsic evil being imposed upon our country.
In other words, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be accountable in the end before God with how we vote now. So we are obligated to learn, to find out as much as we can about these things, not just the politician that we like. We need to know what they stand for, but we need to know what the church teaches on these things. So please check out EWTN's website for more information on these issues and on a deeper understanding of theology regarding this. And don't forget Theology Roundtable. This is a show that Colin is just going to go crazy with a plethora of wisdom and knowledge and just, yeah.
Father Mitch as well.
Yeah.
He's on there.
And Father Mitch is there talking about hunting. So, no, a couple of great minds going at it for the glory of God. So, thank you, Colin. Appreciate you being on here. All right. God bless you all, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back after this break with our guest tonight, Father Brian Nolan and Doug Jackson, and back from the dead, walk through the cemetery, final things of life, eschatology, and great acting. Don't go away. We'll be back after this.
Y'all walking through the cemetery tonight? What do you expect to see in the cemetery? Spooky ghosts. Goblins. The dead would like to have a word with you tonight.
And we are back. What you saw there is our Halloween special. No, I'm just kidding. We don't have a Halloween special. We have the All Hallows Eve special. That's actually coming up next week, which is perfect for this show. That is actually an excerpt from our guest program. And this is fantastic. You're going to love this, ladies and gentlemen. It's just theater, it's evangelization. John Paul II would have been all over this one, like ugly on a gorilla, like white on rice, as they say, or bark on a tree, because he was big into theater. Father Brian Nolan, great to have you on the show, and Doug Jackson. I love the name. Jackson. Good to have you gentlemen here. And now, Father, you are the chaplain at Mount St. Mary's, correct?
Chaplain at Mount St. Mary's University.
University. And so you're pastor to the college
students. Yeah, that's a great blessing.
All right, very good. Keeps you young and healthy.
That's right, yeah, we had great kids.
Right. You were seminary with Father Anthony, too, I hear.
Yeah, we were classmates for a year, and then I was a year behind him. So if you want stories.
I was going to say, go ahead.
Yeah.
Tell us something.
That's right, exactly. He was very polite in class.
He was very polite.
He paid me to say
stop leaning in. He was very polite in class, always very good. Okay, after the show, you give me the good stuff. Okay, tell us about this program. I mean, tell us what we're seeing here. This is a walk through the cemetery. This is the dead coming back to life, but not like the world would do it, where they would make it more the haunted type approach. You're bringing this lives of the saints back to people. Fill us in on what this is.
If I can give you some of the background, it all started back in when I was in seminary in the early years. We actually in seminary had a very harmless haunted house. There was like Frankenstein and Dracula, and the way they would kind of justify it, I think, was they were like, okay, we'll scare them and then we'll evangelize them, because the Legion of Mary would have a table afterward for our college students, and that was kind of it just kind of struck me. It's like, we probably could do better. We probably could do better with October in teaching the faith in some creative way, but it was just kind of a seed that was planted. Another story, when I was a seminarian, we had a bunch of college, our youth group, and I just happened to be at a parish, and there was a haunted hayride, and I went on it, and I'm the last one through, so there's about 20 of them, and I don't know what to expect, so I'm there, and I'm the last one through, and I get in there, and they're like, "Welcome to the haunted hayride," and I'm just thinking, ready to be scared. And they said, "Now, before you go in, I want everyone to sign your soul away to the devil." And I was like, "What? Come sign your soul away to the devil. Sign right here." And I was like, my kids aren't signing. And I'm thinking, like, my kids have already gone in there. I'm not saying that's what all the places do it, but it's so like stuck me. I'm like, hello, and I'm a pretty peaceable person, but I was not happy. I'm like, we're not signing, and it just really struck me. It's like, we can do so much better. And then in the course of seminary, I remember I used to read these little short stories of the saints from this book, The Saints Show Us Christ. And I remember reading the life of Saint Jean de Brebeuf, one of the North American martyrs. I had never heard who he was. I didn't even know, I didn't even know how to pronounce his name. And I'm reading the story of how they were sent to evangelize the Native Americans, especially the Hurons and the Iroquois. And it talks about when they were captured and how he stayed back with them because he wouldn't leave those who were newly baptized, and there were some who weren't. And he went through 18 hours of torture. And it talked about the things they would do to him, and yet it's like there was a peacefulness on his face, and he kept encouraging them, but then they would do things like they would cut off his feet, and they'd pour boiling hot water over their heads to mock baptism. And the different things they did to him, I'm just like, how have I never heard this story? And when I read it, it was just like, how can we not be telling this story? And those were some of the seeds that were planted eventually a few years down the road that were the seeds planted for doing a Back from the Dead cemetery walk.
Back from the Dead cemetery walk. Wow. I know what you mean about that. I had read Sane Among Savages about the North American martyrs, and you're right. The stories are to use the term fantastic, doesn't. They're moving. They're life changing. They're incredible. But these stories are amazing. It's even like St. Anthony, for example. Which, I don't know why I think of St. Anthony when I see you, Father. But even his stories of preaching to the fish and things of this nature and are just amazing stories that you hear, and they just sound like childhood tales. Yeah. But we're intrigued by stories. Christ teaches the parables are stories. And they move us. So, it's so important to be able to tell them and keep that art going. Hollywood is a multi-gazillion dollar business based on telling stories. A good number of them are polluted and corrupt, unfortunately, but you find some good in some of them in some areas, but you can't beat these stories. These are powerful stories. Now, Doug Jackson here, what's your role in this powerful venture?
Well, I assist with some technical aspects of the production. So I'm also the webmaster for the Back from the Dead Cemetery Walk website, which we've used to spread the message a little bit. One of the problems we have with Back from the Dead is that it doesn't scale very well because you can only pass so many people through the cemetery on an evening or two. And so we've tried to expand the message a little bit by getting the media out there through the website as well. And I've assisted Father Brian with some of the previews that we've done, audio previews, and then also worked on the video for the piece that we saw in the introduction there.
If I can share with you too, we would always go around and tell people like, this is what we do, and people would look at us like, we don't really understand what you're doing. You know what I mean? That sounds weird, or it's like going to be too crazy, or we do a very mainstream teachings on the faith, and it was through Doug Jackson and just doing an audio version that when people could hear it, they were just like, wow, that's powerful. Mm-hmm. And there, again, meditation on the things of what happens when you pass away. What about heaven? What about the reality of hell? What about purgatory? A person being purified. And it was through Doug Jackson that it kind of started to make sense to people. And we gave a little audio sneak preview. We started that, and we started taping characters. And so it was just a way of teaching the faith in the cemetery. We say it'll give you a holy fear of the things you should be afraid of, and a great love of heaven.
So kind of describe the scene. So if I go, I'm going to walk into the cemetery. It's nighttime.
It's nighttime with lanterns. You're being led through a group with lanterns, and you see our opening gravedigger character, and he looks to you and he's like, the dead would like to have some words with you tonight. and he has these great little, he's a little bit eerie and a little bit off, and he's like, don't waste the time of the dead or the ones who still live. He has these great lines, and then his best line is, he just says, you see, the cemetery walk isn't about spooky ghosts or goblins, it's about you. And then he has these great lines and people were like, whoa, what am I getting myself into? And that's the opening character that sets the tone for the different saints that you're going to meet.
And where's this take place at? It's a real cemetery. Where at?
So we do it both. We've done it up in St. Anthony's Cemetery. It's right near the Grotto, which is right at Mount St. Mary's University. More frequently, we've also been using the Elizabeth Ann Seton Shrine. They have a wonderful cemetery, and including we have a St. Elizabeth Ann Seton in the cemetery at the place she was originally buried. So she happens to be right there. It's a very powerful,
Wow. Okay. So you come in and you got a lantern. You're being led throughout the entire cemetery, and at various places you have different actors ready to go. Then
some people run up to you. Some people just you come to meet. Other people, there's older people and younger people. There's different nationalities. We have children in the cemetery. You have people who speak different languages to you, from Polish to German to French to multiple different languages. So, and some of the saints know your names. So I'll talk a little bit more about them, but it has one of those things where when you're not even looking at them,
my name is Father Jerzy Popiełuszko.
It has a little bit right there.
Yeah.
wow. So you've got different actors coming up, and tell us about the actors a little bit. Are they high school, college, adult? What do you get for actors?
Yeah, it started with just all seminarians, because that's who I had. We have now the largest seminary in the nation, and we just use the seminarians. And then we start expanding to using college students, and then children, and then adults. And then we wanted to use, again, different nationalities, so it's really a diverse group of people. And we have some great students at Mount St. Mary's who are the actors, and you get new people every year, new characters, but also new people playing the different characters.
And how many characters are there on a particular event?
On a particular night, there's about 11. 11 that you meet back from dead. It takes about 35 minutes to walk through, but it's just a powerful meditation, and each one person has their own message.
And this is great because, we're so used to the cemeteries being something that's got that kind of scary feel to it. That's how it's been secularized. When really every time we drive down the road and pass a cemetery, we should be thinking, I'm going to end up there one day. Yeah. This is, as they say, there's two things you have to do in life: pay taxes and die.
Yeah.
At least a second one for sure, but in all reality, it shouldn't. I mean, the real fear of death should be if we're not prepared for it.
And that's what our cemetery. It really is a meditation, but it's in a living, engaging, inspiring way. And what we call it an evangelization drama. And again, we were trying to get words for kind of what we do. We see it as it's almost an extension. You know how St. Francis of Assisi said, let's make the incarnation, and in Christmas time we have live nativities. We said, why not use October? And let's do some live meditations of people sharing their stories. It's going to inspire you and make you think about the last things.
Do you do it just in October then?
Just in October.
Really? Okay, is this something you want to take on the road and turn into a
People have asked us,
year-round
and
type of thing?
we're open to it. You know, it would take a next level of, people ask us to come out to them, and partly we're looking at it for next stages. We're also, Doug Jackson was talking about the website, backfromthedead.org, and it just, we're hoping to have scripts available for people in January.
Oh, so what will happen with the scripts then, Doug?
They'll be able to download the scripts then, and we'll provide some direction for people so that if they wanted to focus on trying to do this within their own parish or within their own community, that they'll have the material. Some of the preparation that goes into the scripts is a long and tedious process. Father Brian has the capability of pulling in the seminarians, and some of the seminarians have actually worked on their own scripts. They've researched the saint that they're to portray, and then it's gone through a process of editing and investing to a point of checking, to make sure that we're sending the right message in the scripts themselves. And so there'll be some direction as far as the material that's made available. And we've got lots of saints to choose from, and so we can continue to expand as the time goes on. It's an interesting thing. I'm a convert to the faith, and I was raised in a good Christian family, but never really understood what the communion of saints was all about. And so as I've learned through my Catholic faith, the communion of saints, it was a natural extension to participate and be a part of this, because it really is, and we'll find that written in the Catechism, paragraphs 957, I think, references the communion of saints, and how those that have gone before us are speaking for us to the Father on our behalf, and the great benefit that we can all gain that reinforcement of our faith from those who've gone before.
Do you do any of the acting, Doug?
I don't.
You don't? Why not?
I'm always behind the scenes.
Oh, because you got a good look for
different gifts, but the same spirit.
For a cemetery guy. How do I put that to say it nicely? You look good back from the dead. That's not what I mean. Not like that necessarily. So, okay, all right. Well, we're going to run to a break here. When we get back, we're going to see a little bit more. We got one of the actors here tonight. And Father's going to break into some song and dance too, I think. If we're maybe not, no, probably not. Okay, all right. Well, don't go away, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back after this and more from Back from the Dead, Walk Through the Cemetery. Back in a moment. Birthday girl there in the audience, Dawn, look at her. Yeah, didn't know you were going to be on international television on your birthday. Yeah, look at her sitting there, 27 years old. Look at her. Just a beautiful young lady sitting there, and just and she's come down with your troupe. Is that correct, Father?
She has, yeah. She's actually one of our cemetery walk actor.
Oh, you're an actor
as well. She plays Teresa of Avila.
Ah, Teresa of Avila sitting next to Edith Stein. Imagine the conversation. What was that like? So what was it like in your day? Well, let me tell you about battles. Oh, it's warfare. Man, if I had camel pants like that guy up on stage, I'd be all over that. Yeah. We'd really take it to him. Okay, now we're going to go to a clip here in just a moment with Edith Stein. Is there anything we need to know to set this up, or?
So you meet Edith Stein later in the cemetery. Edith Stein, who Judy Campbell plays Edith Stein, she did the research and was putting together the script. We helped we helped kind of edit it. And the first time we heard her do it, we about fell over. Judy is a third order Carmelite. It was so powerful and so moving. We were just like, that was amazing. We were so moved. And she's one of the last characters you meet in the cemetery, so maybe we could see the clip.
Excellent. All right, here it is. Clip Edith Stein. Meet her. Learn from her.
I am Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross. In the world, I was the philosopher, Edith Stein. I was a German Jew, and for many years I was an atheist. But then things began to change in my life. In 1917, when my Christian friend and teacher Adolf Reinach was killed at the war front, I went to see his widow, Anna. She was not in despair, although she had lost her husband so suddenly. For the first time, I was seeing with my very eyes this Christian hope in the eternal life, and my atheism was shattered by Anna's witness of hope. God uses all things. There are no coincidences. 1 year later, I was shopping in Frankfurt with Pauline. We stopped in at the cathedral, and while I was looking around at the artwork, I saw a woman with a market basket come in, kneel down in the pew to pray. There was no one in the church, but she came in like one expecting a conversation. And I realized it was a conversation with God that she had. And I wanted this intimacy with God, but I did not know how to get it, or who could teach it to me. God uses all things. There are no coincidences. 3 years later, I was in Bergzabern on vacation. My friends had all gone down into town. I stayed back. I was in the library looking for something to read, and I found a book, The Autobiography of Saint Teresa of Avila. I began to read this book. I could not stop. I read the whole night. This woman, this Saint Teresa, I'd never heard of her before, but she was giving me the answer to the question I had had for 3 years, perhaps my whole life. She explained for me what I had seen in that woman in the church and how to pray with the heart. Then I read a verse that spoke directly to me. It said, "Where there is no love, put love, and God will be in that place." There are no coincidences. 5 months later, I was baptized into the Holy Mother Church and then became a Carmelite nun. Later, because of the war, I was sent to Holland. On July 26, 1942, in protest against the Nazi genocide, the Dutch bishops had the Catholic priests read a pastoral letter to the faithful at every Mass. And the Nazis retaliated immediately. Over 300 nuns, brothers, and priests from our country were rounded up and deported. We were herded like cattle into freight trains, without food, without water, one on top of the other. And so it was for 4 days, until the doors opened at Auschwitz. But it was then that I realized that our Lord, the ambassador of love, had chosen me. He had chosen me to bring his love into that place of no love. You see, God desires to bring his love into all places. He desires to put his love into all situations. And you must remember, there are no coincidences. It is no coincidence that you are here with us this evening. Do you see this? Will you let God use you to bring his love into the world? Yeah, even when they don't deserve it. Will you let God use you to bring his love into the world, even when there is no earthly reward? Will you let God use you to bring his love into the world, even when it seems like there will be no payback? Will you trust him? Give him your heart. Let God use you. Will you let God use you for his love?
Wow, fantastic. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. That was Edith Stein, and Edith is with us now. And I'm not sure who we're going to be talking to, because you know how thespians can be. Sometimes they go to character, and you just can't get them back. So we'll find out if it's Edith or if it's Judy. Hi.
Judy.
Judy!
Yes,
nice to have you on the show,
thank
Judy.
you.
That's fantastic stuff. Yeah, the accent's great. Can you talk in the accent, though? Because the accent's fun.
Yes, I can try a bit.
Okay. That's good.
I don't know. It's like from the practice. I studied German, so I had an opportunity to be around a lot of people who.
Oh, speak some German for us.
Ich weiß nicht, was ich überhaupt sagen soll.
That's it. This interview's over. I don't even know what she said, but it sounded intense. So, okay. Well, that's fantastic. How do you say How do you say, for example, I love you in German?
Ich liebe dich.
See, that doesn't sound as good as French, does it? Or Spanish. What is Spanish? I love you in Spanish.
Te amo.
Te amo. It just sounds in French, you know. What is it in French?
J'aime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine, Eric Jettis, he's Maltese, and he says in Malta it's in Hoboken.
Wow.
It just sounds like you're gonna I don't know, spit a fur ball or something, but I don't know why I'm going there. All right, so Edith Stein, this has got to be incredible to go into her life, because you kind of get to know her as not just as a character, but she's a sister. I mean, she's one of our sisters. She professed the same faith that this whole network is built on.
True.
She received the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ, the same Jesus we receive, that Father and Father bring into the world through their hands. And so she's family.
Yes.
So that's what's great about this. Tell us what that's like to step into her world, to get to tell the sister story.
Well, it's very beautiful. I've had the opportunity to do it for a few years now with Father Brian, and we were talking about this on the way down here, that every year when we have to refresh ourselves with these pieces, because they're meditations, we said something like they're almost like icons, they're like living icons. And so those people who get to perform them for the audience that's coming through the cemetery, you know, it's meditation for us as well. And having to learn it, relearn it every year again, it just gets deeper and deeper. I know it's been part of my prayer life, and I guess, you know, the assistance of Edith Stein, St. Teresa Benedicta of the Cross, just different years, like the difference between human love and divine love, how divine love transforms that into which it goes into, and the mystery of the cross, put love where there is no love, and then God will be there. It's just wonderful.
Well, and something that you had said there really struck me was, you know, will you give love without looking to be repaid?
Exactly.
And that's a tough thing, you know, in our society here in the West. I mean, we have this mentality of, you know, I'll invest as long as I'm going to get a return on my investment. And that's not just in monetary terms. There's a lot of people, I think it's easy for us, you know, I know I've fallen into that temptation and that struggle of, well, if I'm going to commit something of myself, I need to get something back. I mean, it's a battle for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that statement in there, will you love without?
Yes. And she also, it says, even when they don't deserve it, like the Lord did, you know? It says, anyone would, you know, not very few would die for a just man, but who would come and die for someone who is not yet?
And isn't that one of the greatest family battles we have with family members, is family gathering? Well, no, they don't deserve it. But we need to show forgiveness and invite them, dear sweetheart, honey bunch, please. They are family. Yeah, well, they don't deserve it. You know, I mean, it's just, we all can battle that.
It's only the grace of God, you know, and that's it's the grace of God, sanctifying grace in the soul, that gives us the power to be able to love like that. That's divine. That's divine love.
But it sounds so great if it's in a concentration camp in Germany in World War II.
Extraordinary.
But in day-to-day life with family and friends and neighbors and work, people you work with, fellow employees, and some of those seminarians you probably deal with, Father, oh man. Just stories I've heard, I don't know.
Can I share with you too, you know, one of the last stories about Edith Stein, the last sighting of her before she was sent, or after the trains was, everybody was so overwhelmed by the trains, and they were at one of the stops on their way to Auschwitz, where she was comforting the children and combing their hair. That was one of the last stories of Edith Stein. You imagine, like, where mothers are just so overwhelmed by their situation, and they know it's a very uncertain, if not maybe their death, and they don't know what. But Edith Stein was comforting the children, and those kind of stories. That how can we not share these? How can we not share these with the world?
This really is part of the battle. I mean, it's because, you know, Father Anthony, I know that EWTN is all about battling for the hearts and minds with education and catechesis and so forth. But isn't this part of battling for hearts and minds by filling the mind and the heart with stories in dramatic sense like this?
Right, I think it engages you in the battle. Just hearing Judy's witness, you're convicted because you do have that sense of, okay, yeah, I'm not going to be in the concentration camp. I don't need to make my home a concentration camp, but am I allowing myself to be used by God? Just listening to that coming back from the clip, I was sitting here thinking, I'm not allowing myself to be used by God. And you're convicted in a good way.
Right.
It's like, okay, these are holy men and women, and I want to imitate that. And that's really the Christian battle, to imitate the holiness of Christ.
Yeah.
And we have all these witnesses.
And it's one of the greatest forms of weapons against the enemy of salvation, against the devil and his minions, is that kind of love, is that charity, is the imitation of Christ. So stories like this become a great thorn in his side, because it's reminding us of the last things and of the need for us to prepare and live in such a way that gets us to that great day of judgment. Tell us, if you can, Father Brian, about some of the other saints that are going to be that are talked about that you do.
So some of the saints, St. Teresa of Avila speaks of her vision of hell. It was written in her diary, and she says these words. She said, I saw a vision of hell. And even if it had been 1,000 years, it would be impossible to forget it. And her whole message at the end, after talking about, and a lot of it's primary, from her diary, it just goes, and she says, how can we be so indifferent when so many people are lost? How can we not do everything to help one another on the road to heaven? And she just gives us very powerful, and that's Don Walsh plays her. It's very moving and very powerful. Another one along the way, you meet a soul being purified. So a person who has passed away and said, it's kind of very sobering, but they kind of come out of nowhere and they come through the crowd and they say, I don't know if you know about this, but about 2 weeks ago I was in a car accident and I knew that I died. And they talk about what happens. They're like, it's like all of a sudden I was drawn up in the presence of God, but I couldn't get there. Not because God wasn't ready for me, but my soul wasn't ready for him. And they said, now I see everything. Every part of me that I held back from God. And it's taken from a meditation from St. Catherine of Genoa, her fire of love, where she talks about it's like every moment I'm being drawn up closer and closer to his love. She's like the rust on my soul, it's being purged off. The fire of his love is making me clean again. So the actor, and we have a male and a female play at one of our seminarians and one of our college students, they do incredible. And you can just see they're filled with joy, but then they also say, but also filled with so much pain, because now I see what my sins did to my soul, and now they keep me from the one that I love and the one that loves me. And they look out to you, and the last line is a quote from St. Paul where he says, he's like, are you listening? He said, listen closely to these words, for they're not mine. At the end of our lives, our whole lives will be revealed before the tribunal of Christ. Everything revealed. According to what we've done in the body, we'll receive recompense according to what we've done in the body, good or bad. Live for Christ, trust in him. It's all worth it. It's all worth it. And when they do it, we have them almost like it feels like they're being pulled back into it. It's a very powerful moment, but it's this person being purified.
So you've got a good variety then, because listening to Judy here portray, this character, there's a lot of depth to what she's saying, and for a lot of us, myself included, some of that's going to either bounce right off of the thick-headed skull that we have. Myself included, or it's just going to go right over us. I mean, we're all different places. But to have someone come out of the crowd and say, I was in a car accident 2 weeks ago and I'm in purgatory right now and it ain't fun. You don't want to go here. You want to prepare everything you can while you're alive so you can bypass this need for purification, or at least lessen it and get to heaven faster. I mean, so you're actually able to relate to people on different levels then.
Yeah. And Father Brian, didn't you say that Doug inspired you to be like the voice of the devil?
Yeah. So we have everything from let me tell you about St. Therese first. So St. Therese, we try to do some creative things. So St. Therese is not facing you. She's turning the other way, dressed as a Carmelite, and all of a sudden she says, Doug, Father Anthony, John, and she'll turn around and she's like, do you know I've been praying for you? That's what I said I'd spend my time in heaven. I spend my time in heaven doing good on earth, and she's just glowing when she says it. And she talks about the little way. I did everything with little things with great love. That's what you can do too. When you do this, do it for him. When you do this, do it for him. When you do this, and she's like, it's not the great thing. It's how much love you put into it. And she has this. The first one who did it, she had this great smile. She's like, even small things are big in his eyes. And it's just so a very living way. So when they hear names of people, that like blows them away. You know what I mean? Where you're mentioned in the cemetery, which leads me, that's the softer part. But then there was a thought about having, what about like the screw tape letters, and what about having a devil? And I do have to say that you were the inspiration in your own way, but please hear me out. Hear me out. So I was at a youth conference in Ohio, of course, and I remember you did a thing on the 10 Commandments, and a very creative and great, and I love creative evangelization. And so it was an inspiration. And I remember you doing an aspect of the devil. You're like, a lot of people think the devil is, and I still remember you're like, a British guy, you know, who's like, hello, I'm the devil. You know, and it was hysterical. And they're like, or maybe they think he wears like little red tights and goes, yeah. And I just started, I remember because I just listened to it, loved creativity. Yeah. And you said, if we only realize the devil is, and then you did this devil voice, and you did this scenario of a person sitting down and all of a sudden someone shows up. And you did it, and it freaked people out, and even then you're like, that even scares me, you know what I mean? It was very scary. So that was the inspiration for, we have kind of a Jack Nicholson devil. He's fun, he's funny, he's like, and he's talking about his friends, and he's this guy. We have some great, we even have a female devil who does it sometimes, but they talk about their friends they're talking about. It's a little bit off, you're like, why did he just say that? And then he says, you know, he's talking with this one girl working on a project, and she's all worried about it. She's all anxious if it's gonna go all right. And he says, so I tell my friend Susan, and he says, Susan, it's probably not gonna work out. You're probably gonna mess up just like you always do. And he has these really dark things, you're like, that's not very nice, you know what I mean? And then it gets a little bit off, and then he all of a sudden he looks to you, and he laughs after each time he says something a little bit off. And then all of a sudden he says, you know, the problem with my friends is they can't even see me. He leans over and he's like, I just whisper in their ears. And he looks at it, he's like, I just put happy little thoughts into their rotten little heads. And he's laughing. And he goes back and forth and he says, he's very bold, he's brazen, he's like, really, it's all pretty easy to do. I'll just tell you what you want to hear. Or sometimes. And he looks at it, he's like, I'll remind you of the scum that you really are. You know what I mean? And he's got this great laugh. And at the end, and part of the line that I remember from that we kind of incorporated was, do you think I don't exist? Do you think I don't exist? And then he says, how many times, and he said, let me put things in perspective for you. How many times you've been around, maybe by yourself, maybe with another person, and you think, no one else is around? And he looks at you and he says, I watch you. And you're like, whoa. And he's like, I can tell you Chad for breakfast on Monday. I can tell you who you're with on Friday night. And he's like, I know all of your weaknesses. And he's like, I'm like a hunter and you're my prey. And I'm good. And then he laughs and he's like, ha ha ha. You know, he's got this great laugh and it's like, everybody's like, oh my. But he laughs and in the very end he's like, well, gotta go. Plenty of parties around here. And then he leaves and he's like, but I'll tell you what, I'll see you guys later. And he's laughing. He's like, I mean it, later. And then he laughs and he's got this great laugh and but not to say you're an inspiration, but your evangelization was. It was the inspiration for a sobering way to remind yourself of the reality of the one.
Yeah, well, and that little bit you talked about is something, you know, that I did stick that in there, the 10 Commandment presentation, because a lot of people don't get an accurate understanding of you know, the devil and the trickiness and the cleverness. You know, as St. Paul says, he comes as an angel of light. So he's going to look good, you know, but so tell me then, is this recorded? Is this, Doug, have we got this whole thing laid out yet? I mean,
we have pieces of it done.
Okay.
We continue to try and find time and the resources in order to continue to work on that. And it'll be a work in progress for some time to come, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But one of our hopes is because we can't bring everyone to our presentations, and there may not be groups that are able to present it, is that we'll do something within the new media that allows this just sharing of the information to other people. And that would involve web or,
I can see this at youth groups, CCD classes. I mean, this would be something, you know, that could affect so many people in so many different ways who are never going to be able to come out to the cemetery where you're at and, you know, and see this live. Very important, I think, to get something like this out there. So I don't know what you're waiting for, man. Come on. Pick up the pace. That's right. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. But no, I mean, I think it's very important. Does it have to be done all outside, or are you planning on doing anything like on a set, developed actual set?
We've spoke about that, but there is something very living when you're in the cemetery. Yeah. It just brings, it's like a whole nother experience, especially I work with college students, so that was originally designed for college students. And usually, meditations, we usually invite people for 15 on up, not because it's too hard for others to handle, but it's just more just more mature, their meditations.
Sure.
And my experiences from kind of mid to later high school to college, yeah, I mean, people come away with, and
well, what is the feedback that you get? Like Judy, for example, you as one of the actors, what do you talk to the people afterwards then? Do they get a chance to meet the actors, or?
I don't get a lot of opportunity. Well, through the years, different students that I've had or people talk about it, but because I'm very close to the end, right after my station is what I call heaven. There's the soul in heaven. So I think they do remember the refrains from my piece, which are, there are no coincidences, and that's very powerful about divine providence. And will you let God use you to bring his love into the world? And that God's love is different, and we have to open up so that he can use us. So a lot of times when people leave, they have those ringing in their minds.
Sure.
I think just because I'm right at the end.
So what is the feedback then in general from people?
very people are blown away. People are, the last person you meet is from heaven. And like they're kind of almost like speechless when they say it, and people walk away. We get little notes and letters and things like that. We had one couple that just a very powerful experience in the cemetery. Like, we've just never really thought about heaven, and we were like, I want to be there. And it was interesting that the ironic or interesting thing is some years ago they passed away, and it was kind of tragic. But they had prepared. It was because they were like, I'll never forget when they talked about heaven. And it made us think about things. And they ended up, in this specific case, it's very unique. They were buried in that cemetery nearby. And the person sent us a letter. They're like, during their funeral, and they just said that, we were out there, and they spoke about that cemetery walk, of how it made them think about the last things.
Wow.
And prepare.
And if I can share with you, we got feedback, everything from, it's like, this is like a baptized haunted house. That people, just very, very incredible. Everybody goes through it. Just had incredible experiences because it really is a prayer and a meditation. If I can share with you, one of the other characters is Father David Kulikowski. He's from the Diocese of Savannah. He wrote the script for Father Jerzy Popowuszko, so he's a Polish martyr that happened about 20 years ago. And it was just this extremely powerful, because he grew up with someone who was martyred, and he got to play the character in the cemetery.
Oh, wow.
And in his last line, he begins speaking Polish and says, "Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Even if they take everything from you, they can take nothing. Do not be afraid." And he's playing Father Jerzy Popowuszko. In his last line, he describes of how he basically, what happens when a martyr dies? What happens when a martyr dies? And he talks about what they did to him, because they beat him up, they threw him in a trunk, and they threw him into an icy river, and this is what he said. He said that he's like, it's like I was thrown in the river, and it's like everything went black, and then everything went light.
Father, so we're going to cut you on that. We get just 20 seconds left to go here. That's a great way to end it, though. Everything goes black and everything goes light. Let's strive for the light, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you all for being here. Fantastic. And the website again is?
Backfromthedead.org.
Backfromthedead.org. Don't forget to sign up for Battle Ready at radisguys.com or campground.com. Election coming up. Pray hard. Father, take us out.
May Almighty God bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
We'll see you next week.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.